Welcome to Messages from the Universe with Laurie Wondra. Laurie is an internationally renowned psychic medium, author, and shamanic practitioner, sharing insights from angels, guides, wisdom keepers, and teachers of the universe that help you navigate life's mysteries and transformations.
Hello, I am Laurie Wondra, and thank you for listening. I'm continuing this series about spiritual awakening and spiritual maturity. A few weeks back, I started this series by talking about spirituality maturity beyond love and life. And in the gateways of our maturity, what are some of the myths that we outgrow? Well, today, I want to talk about the signs of spiritual maturity. We always like validation, or how do I know what I know? How do I know where I am? So this is about living the wisdom that you have gained. It's nice to look back and say, wow, these are the experiences that I've had. But how do you apply, embody, live with this insight each and every day? Because it is valuable to you. And last week, I talked about awakening as the doorway to a spiritual path. Then spiritual maturity is what happens after we walk through that doorway. The universe is always providing gateways and doorways and these opportunities for us to advance. And many people spend years seeking spiritual experiences. They attend retreats, read countless books, develop intuitive abilities, explore different healing modalities, search for teachers who might help them understand life's deeper mysteries, ask for the astral beings or those beyond to dump in or drop in information. And all these experiences are incredibly valuable. They expand our awareness and remind us that life is far more interconnected than we once believed. But eventually, something shifts. The journey becomes less about what we experience and more about who we become because of those experiences. Spiritual maturity isn't measured by mystical moments. It isn't determined by how intuitive we are, how many ceremonies we've attended, or whether we've had profound visions. It's revealed in our everyday choices and how we respond when life doesn't go according to plan, how we treat people who disagree with us, and how we carry ourselves through both joy and difficulty. It's living with intent. It's having and discovering a deeper insight of who you are and how you respond to these situations. And understanding that by living with intent, you have the ability to shift a mood or shift an energy. I can be upset with something, but I also can shift that energy to move myself out of that very quickly. I often say that wisdom is knowledge that has been lived. Knowledge fills the mind, but wisdom actually, I feel, transforms the heart. Spiritual maturity is the process of allowing wisdom to become our natural way of living. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to focus on living with such intent and do so many ceremonies and rituals and practices around it, because it's who we have become. So let's explore some of the qualities that I feel begin to emerge as that transformation unfolds. One, I feel you become less reactive and more reflective. One of the earliest signs of spiritual maturity is that your reaction begins to soften. This doesn't mean difficult situations stop happening. People still will disappoint you. Plans will still change. Unexpected losses will still occur, and someone may still criticize you unfairly. Life continues to offer uncertainty because uncertainty is just part of being human. But the difference is found in how you meet those moments. Earlier in our journey, we often ask, why is this happening to me? Or why are they treating me this way? These are understandable questions, and I think we all have probably asked them. But as we mature spiritually, another question begins to arise more naturally. What is this here to teach me? And how did I respond through this experience? Notice the difference. The first question gives our power away. Why did this happen to me? But the second question invites our power back. What is this here to teach me? How did I respond? Perhaps the difficult coworker is teaching patience. Perhaps the relationship ending is making room for one that is better or better reflects who you've become. Perhaps disappointment is helping you release expectations that were never yours to carry. Now, this doesn't mean every painful event is somehow meant to happen, or that suffering is always easy to understand, but rather spiritual maturity recognizes that even life's most difficult experiences can become the greatest teachers if we're willing to learn from them. And this shifts. It doesn't remove the pain, but it transforms our relationship with that pain. And instead of becoming trapped in blame, we become curious. Instead of asking who is at fault, we begin asking, how do I grow from here? That single change has the power to transform an entire life. It changes how we experience the world. Number 2, you no longer need everyone to agree with you. When we first begin awakening, many of us feel excited about what we're discovering. We want to share it with everyone. I see people feeling like now I have to jump into being the teacher or the healer. I have to leave the life that I'm in and become something different. We hope our family understands. We hope our friends will become interested. We want others to see what we've experienced. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes we don't need to make any changes. The experiences are for us and our evolution. One of the most liberating moments on the spiritual path is realizing that your peace no longer depends upon someone else's agreement. You don't need everyone to validate your experiences. You don't need everyone to believe in energy healing, in angels, intuition, reincarnation, meditation, or anything else that has become really meaningful for you. Likewise, you become less interested in convincing others that your path is the correct one. Why? Because truly mature spirituality recognizes that people awaken at different times and in different ways. That's why some people love angels and some like deities, some like crystals, some like plants or animals. There's no one way. There's many ways. One person's doorway may be science. Another's may be prayer. Someone else may awaken through nature. Another through music. Another through profound grief. There just are countless paths leading towards greater awareness. And when we understand this, we become less defensive. We stop arguing. We stop trying to convert and we begin to listen. We understand that there are so many ways, and the diversity and the brilliance of it is to help all of us. Ironically, people often become more interested in your beliefs when they realize you're no longer trying to persuade them. They can be curious, but it doesn't mean they have to agree with you. Peace grows where certainty relaxes. Number 3, you honor healthy boundaries. This is one of the greatest lessons many compassionate people must learn, especially those who identify as caregivers, healers, teachers, or helpers. Many of us grew up believing that kindness meant always saying yes, that love meant sacrifice, that helping others required placing our own needs last. Eventually, we became exhausted, not because we loved too much, but because we forgot to include ourselves in that love. Spiritual maturity teaches us something very different. Healthy boundaries are acts of love. They protect relationships. They create clarity. They prevent resentment. And remembering that boundaries are not walls, they're healthy doors. And every door has a doorway and a gateway that we can choose to open or close. They allow us to decide what enters our lives and what does not. So imagine your home. You probably lock your doors at night. No one accuses you of being unloving because you lock your doors. You're simply protecting what matters. Your emotional and energetic lives deserve the same care. Sometimes saying no is the most loving response available. It allows someone else the opportunity to solve their own problem, and it teaches responsibility. It honors your own well-being. Boundaries also include how we speak to ourselves. Do we continually criticize ourselves? Do we allow guilt to control our decisions? Do we accept treatment from others that we would never encourage someone we love to accept? Every boundary begins with self-respect, and self-respect is deeply spiritual. I learned this last summer when literally my front door was blown off its frame. I had to have someone come fix it. And I looked at it as, what's the bigger message here? Maybe I'm not securing my doorway. Maybe I'm saying yes too often. Maybe I'm not being selective. I've learned with every experience, give yourself some space to be curious and to ask why. Because usually there's something relatable, something that's happening out there, like my front door, could also be happening in here with me. Number 4, humility continues to grow. One of the greatest surprises on the spiritual path is discovering that the more we learn, the more mystery appears. We're never really done. We just find ourselves asking for more. Early in our journey, we often believe we've found the answer. Some of us might even stop. But years later, we smile at that certainty because life has continued teaching us. Spiritual maturity replaces certainty with humility. It becomes easier to say, I don't know, or I'm not done, or I'm still learning. Those may be some of the wisest words we speak. And the universe is definitely larger than our understanding. I like knowing I haven't learned everything. I like knowing the universe might drop in this mystery or more for me. That's why we're here on earth. We don't want to be bored. Some of us don't like change, but from the soul perspective, we love change. We love evolution. We love this time when the universe is giving us the opportunity to expand and grow. Every scientific discovery reveals new mysteries. Every spiritual insight opens another doorway. And every answered question creates several new ones. Humility allows us to remain students throughout our lives. Yes, we can become masters in some areas, but remember, the master is always the student. Understanding that prevents arrogance. It protects us from believing we've reached the end of our learning and we're done when we say, I've awakened, or when I experienced my awakened. That's just the beginning. The wisest teachers that I've met rarely present themselves as having all the answers. They'll ask, they'll seek, they'll be curious, but they'll also not be afraid to say, I don't know. Instead, some of the greatest and wisest teachers remain curious. They continue listening. They continue learning because they understand the teachings and the experiences can show up in any form. They continue allowing life to surprise them. That humility becomes one of their greatest strengths. Number 5, curiosity replaces certainty. Closely connected to humility is curiosity. When we're spiritually immature, certainty often feels incredibly safe. We like definitive answers. In fact, we're taught through our early years through school that we have to have the answer. We prefer simple explanations. We want to know exactly how everything works. But reality is wonderfully different, and it's wonderfully complex. And spirit often refuses to fit anything inside a neat little box. As we mature, we began asking different questions. Instead of saying, this is the truth, we began asking, what else might also be true? That simple shift creates extraordinary freedom. It allows us to appreciate different cultures, different religions, different healing traditions, different philosophies without feeling threatened by them. Curiosity opens the doors that certainty often closes. It reminds us that every person carries experiences we may never have lived. Every culture contains wisdom we may not yet understand. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to learn rather than an opportunity to win. Curiosity also transforms our relationships. Instead of assuming we know someone's intentions, we ask. Instead of judging, we wonder. Instead of reacting, we listen. At the beginning of all my classes that I teach, even though I've written the syllabus, I've written the description, people know why they're coming, I always ask, what brings you here tonight? Because I want to know. I want to remain curious. Questions become more powerful than assumptions. This openness doesn't require abandoning discernment. It doesn't take us off track. It simply means remaining teachable. Number 6, you stop chasing extraordinary spiritual experiences. Now, there's nothing wrong with mystical experiences. Many of us have had them. We crave them, we desire them, we look for them. Perhaps you've seen signs. You've received remarkable intuitive guidance. You've experienced profound meditation, visitations. You've felt the presence of loved ones in spirit. Maybe you've witnessed synchronicities that completely changed your perspective. I know I have. I have many moments in the trails, in the deserts, in the mountains, just in simple meditation in my healing room. And I look at all of these as moments of gifts. But eventually, something else beautiful begins to happen. We stop chasing them. You realize that spirit isn't only found in those extraordinary moments, but spirit is always present. You simply become more aware. Instead of constantly asking for another sign, another experience, another aha, you began noticing the miracle of ordinary life. The morning sunlight filtering through your kitchen window, bird song outside your door, the birds splashing in a bird feeder as I have outside my office window, simple child's laughter, a meaningful conversation, witnessing the kindness of a stranger. Maybe it's the rhythm of your own breathing, a quiet walk through the woods, standing in the rain, the wisdom of silence. The sacred begins appearing everywhere, not because life suddenly became more spiritual, but it's because you became more present and the understanding that you are one with all. You aren't separate from it. There's no need to chase it because it's embodied within you and it is all around you. Many people spend years waiting for dramatic spiritual experiences while overlooking the thousands of quiet miracles unfolding each and every day. Spirit, I find, often whispers. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it shouts when we're not paying attention, but for the most part, it speaks through relationships. It speaks through nature and ordinary mornings and ordinary moments, through unexpected conversations, through moments when we simply pause long enough to notice. Sometimes I find myself leaving a situation and I ask myself, what was that all about? Perhaps enlightenment isn't about escaping ordinary life. Perhaps it's about discovering that ordinary life has always been sacred. Number 7, services become more important than recognition. I like to believe I live a life of being in service. I'm still yet uncomfortable with most recognition. But as our spiritual path matures, another profound shift begins to occur. The question changes from earlier we often ask, what's my purpose? And that's a beautiful question. But over time, it evolves. We begin asking, how can I help today? What do I feel? Where do I feel I'm needed today? Where is spirit guiding me? And that purpose becomes less about finding the perfect career or finding what's our soul mission becomes less about discovering a grand mission, less about proving our significance. Instead, purpose becomes something we practice every day. It's living our mission. It's living what our soul has signed up and agreed to come here to do. And perhaps your purpose today is encouraging someone who felt discouraged. Maybe that's not your big grandiose mission, but it's a purpose that you have today, this moment, this hour. Perhaps it's caring for an aging parent, listening to a friend, helping a neighbor, mentoring someone beginning their own journey, being fully present with your family, your community. Maybe it's about creating beauty or protecting nature. Maybe it's offering kindness where anger might otherwise have appeared. Purpose becomes less about achievement and more about contribution. Recognition also becomes less important. You no longer feel the need for everyone to notice your kindness. You don't require applause for every generous act. You're not doing it to get something. You're doing it because you're called to. You understand that much of the most meaningful work in the world happens quietly. The parent comforting a frightened child, the nurse sitting beside a patient, the teacher encouraging a struggling student, simply making eye contact, nodding, agreeing, supporting. Maybe it's about the volunteer preparing meals, a friend who simply checks in or shows up. These moments rarely make headlines, yet they really transform lives. Spirit recognizes what the world often overlooks. One of the most mature questions we can ask each morning is not, what can I receive? But rather, how can I bring more peace, wisdom, kindness, and hope into the lives I touch today? That single question has the power to change the atmosphere of an entire room. So now this is a lot of wisdom. How do we live in that wisdom? When you look back over these qualities and you maybe re-listen, you might notice something surprising. None of them require psychic abilities. None require extraordinary spiritual gifts. None depend upon mystical experiences. They are available to every single person, every moment of the day. So whether you meditate every day, or you've never meditated and you've never attended a spiritual workshop, whether someone believes in angels or not, whether someone identifies as religious, spiritual, or simply curious about life, these qualities are deeply human. And perhaps that is what spiritual maturity ultimately reveals. It isn't about becoming someone different. It is about becoming more fully you. Maybe more compassionate, more honest, more humble, more courageous, more curious, more discerning, more peaceful. Not because life became easier, but because you learned how to meet life differently. The greatest teachers throughout history were not remembered simply because of what they taught. They were remembered because of how they lived. Their presence reflected their wisdom. Their kindness reflected their understanding. Their humility reflected their strength. And perhaps that is the invitation being offered to each of us, not to try to become something perfect that we have made up in our mind, not to become enlightened in a way we sometimes imagine what enlightenment is, but to become people whose presence leaves others feeling seen and valued and respected and inspired. And in the end, spiritual maturity isn't measured by what we know. I believe it's measured by the love we embody, the wisdom we practice, the integrity we live, the peace we bring into the world. One conversation, one choice, and one ordinary day at a time. This is something for you to contemplate on and see what fits and maybe what doesn't fit. Go forward with love and peace out into the world. I'm Laurie Wondra of Your Life Core. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Messages from the Universe. For information about Laurie Wondra's current events or to schedule a private session, visit her website, yourlifecore.com. You can also subscribe to her monthly newsletter. Laurie also shares inspirational and informational messages on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.